Today's featured camera is the Agfa Jsolar double bellow camera. It was manufactured by Agfa back in the 1930s, and it was designed to take 9 by 12 centimeter plates, which you could also, if you're able to find them, load them up with a film back that could take 9 or 6 by 9 medium format 120 film. Not much is known about these cameras. Unfortunately, it's very common back in the 1930s, 1920s, when a lot of the information from such companies wasn't kept, or these ran for short period of times during their manufacturing. In order to open up this camera, you have a little button on the left side of the right side of the camera. By pressing it, releases the platform, and by pulling it forward, then you'll be able to access the camera. Pull it all the way until you stop it near the stopper at the measuring distance scale. It's called a double bellow is because once the camera reaches its maximum length in the sense of distance, it can actually even go much further, to the point where it even extends much to double its length. Usually these are great when it comes to portraitures, when you want to get up and close to your subjects, or in some cases if you're doing some kind of landscape photography. So the Agfa Jsolar was equipped with a computer shutter system with an Agfa Jsolar lens of f4.5, 13.5 centimeters. It was ideally made to take black and white pictures, as back in the 1930s a lot of the films were black and white. It is a 4-element non-coated, so it's ideally for using black and white film. There are different ways of using your Jsolar camera when it comes to composing and focusing. The typical way, or the usual way of doing so, is using the back glass that allows you to see your subject directly through the camera lens and allows you to focus accurately as possible when it comes to composing your subjects. Sometimes, unfortunately, because of the age of these cameras, these back doors are missing or the glass is broken, and thus allows you to not allow you to use those kind of features when it comes to it. You could find some glass that's online, or you could etch some glass for yourself that allows you to compose as well and use that feature. But if you can't, there are multitudes of ways of using this camera as well. They do have the finder at the top that allows you to compose and see what you want to take a picture of. The only unfortunate part is you can't focus accurately unless you have some kind of rangefinder and an external rangefinder that you can use, or you can basically use the meter or the focusing scale that's at the edge of these cameras on the platform, and it kind of gives you the you kind of have to guess for that focusing range based on your aperture settings and the distance of your subject. What's great about these as well is it allows you for side-to-side movement and up and down movement for the lens board when you're trying to compose for your subjects as well. So I brought this camera to Point Peele in Ontario, and we're just going to go around taking pictures with it. I have loaded it up with a film roll. These ones will allow me to take 6 by 9 pictures. When you want to use the glass plate that's set up at the back. Not sure if you can see it. Here we are. You do want to activate the time mode in order to open the shutter indefinitely. Bulb mode also opens the shutter, but it's only as long as you can press the shutter. Time mode is usually what is equipped with a lot of these shutters for these bellow cameras. You could use the curtain, usually from this door, to kind of focus and get get as minimum light as possible to that glass so you can see. If you don't, you can use any kind of cloth or even your jacket if you don't have a door just like that. So you can see I have the camera set up onto a tripod. Ideally, you want to have them on a tripod to keep them nice and steady. And if even possible, get yourself one of these shutter cable releases that you can find cheaply online, usually through eBay. And that allows you to cock the shutter, to release the shutter without any extra movement to your camera. So I have this set up to grab the scene here from the cemetery. Once you have your composition set up, your focus set up, and everything looks good, all you have to do is remove this doorway and either load your plate, or in my case, I'm loading the 120 roll, and then set up your shutter based on your exposure. I've loaded up this with a Kodak Tri-X 400 black and white film. I'm going to set it at f5.6 for 200ths of a second. Here's the camera loaded with the vintage back film. And what we're going to do is, before you remove the dark slide off, make sure that your T mode has been closed off. You don't want to expose your film right after you remove the dark slide before activating your shutter. So that is active, that's been closed off. And then you're going to set up the camera by turning this dial to 200ths of a second. And we're going to set it up at 5.6. In order to cock the shutter, you got your top lever, and then the bottom lever is to release it. But since we're using the shutter cable, we're just going to activate it with the cable. So we're just going to cock this and take the picture. The one thing to be careful when you're using bellow cameras, and not necessarily when you're using them, but when you purchase them, make sure that the bellows are tight, because any kind of pinhole or any kind of rip or tear would create any light leaks onto your exposures. The best way to check for any kind of light leaks is open your camera from the back, point a flashlight at it, usually in the dark will also help you, and you would be able to locate any kind of pinholes. There are some specialty tapes that you could use to repair the little ones. At the end of the day, if you have major rips or if you have too many holes to even cover it up, the best next step is to fix your camera by either finding a donor camera with a intact bellow, or to make your own. Maybe in the future I might create a video for how to make one. I have yet to make one for myself, but I do have a camera that requires a bellow to be fixed. So maybe in the future I'll be able to show you something. Another thing as well, when you do consider using a bellow camera, especially the ones that require you to remove the plates from the back, is it's not really meant for speed photography of any kind of, because the shutter don't go as fast. They are a leaf shutter system, and even if you find the more modern one with the highest shutter speed of 500ths of a second, that won't allow you to capture anything that's high speed. At the same time, it's the loading time, the time to focus, the time to change the plates, and the time that you cock the shutter and release it. If you're trying to do any kind of wildlife photography, it's gonna be difficult. So definitely keep in mind when you are taking pictures with old vintage cameras, is to realize how some of these cameras are meant for specific things over others. So in most cases, the Jsolar would be ideal for any kind of landscape and standstill portraiture. So if you're even able to keep your pet still, which I'm hoping to do so with my dog later on, to see if I can actually get her to sit still long enough for me to take a picture of her. But if not, usually, again, ideally for people portraiture and landscape.